Today, we are doing a deep dive into something that's just fundamental to how we connect with each other, the art of conversation. I mean, whether you're trying to land a job or build a relationship or just find your way in a new city, conversation is always the key.
And we have a really fascinating set of source materials for this. The tips in here, they aren't just theory. They're based on practical experience from experts who've spent thousands of hours talking to people.
From all kinds of different backgrounds, too.
Wildly different backgrounds. So you, the listener, you're looking for the fastest way to get this knowledge right, the shortcuts, to just becoming fundamentally better at talking to people.
And that's our mission today. We're going to pull out those universal principles that work in any language, but we're also going to spend some serious time on the specialized strategies you need when you're speaking a foreign language, like English.
It's all about practical, actionable advice. We're getting past the basics and into the real mechanics of conversational flow.
Okay, let's unpack this. So let's start at the absolute foundation. If you had to pull out the single most critical element for a good conversation, what would it be, and why does it work so well?
The sources are, well, they're completely unanimous. It's the power of questions.
Just asking questions.
Specifically, making the other person the focus of the conversation. This isn't just about being polite. It's a bit of a psychological maneuver,
Yes,
actually.
a maneuver. Okay, tell me more about that. Why does putting the focus on the other person work so well?
Well, because talking about yourself is neurologically rewarding. When people talk about their own thoughts, their own stories, it literally activates the same reward centers in the brain as things like food or money.
Wow.
Yeah, they feel a sense of pleasure. So by asking them questions, you're basically giving them that feeling. You become the reason they feel good. And that's really the shortcut to being liked.
That changes the whole frame, doesn't it? It's not just about swapping information. It's about providing this psychological reward.
Exactly.
And the research also points out that when you ask questions, the other person doesn't have to do all the conversational heavy lifting.
That's it, exactly. Think about it. When someone has to carry the whole conversation, coming up with new topics, bridging all the gaps, it's work, it's draining.
Yeah.
But if you, as the question asker, are the one navigating, all they have to do is provide the content. It makes it feel so much easier and more enjoyable for them.
Okay, but there's a potential trap here. You could just fire off question after question, and it becomes an interrogation.
Right.
So is just asking questions enough? Or does that lead us to the next critical piece?
It's the foundation, but no, it's not enough on its own. And that's where active listening comes in. You have to genuinely, truly care about the answer. The experts are really clear on this. People can spot fake engagement from a mile away.
Oh, absolutely. We've all been there, right? That moment where you realize the person you're talking to isn't listening. They're just rehearsing their next line in their head.
Yes, they're just anxious for their turn to speak.
And you can see that anxiety. When you're just waiting for a pause so you can jump in with your point, you're sending a signal that what they're saying is just, an obstacle.
A distraction from what you really want to talk about. The whole energy shifts from a shared discovery to, like, a competition.
What's fascinating here is it's this shift from conversational performance to just being present. If you can just turn off that little voice in your head that's planning your next clever comment, and you actually focus on what they're saying.
The content and the emotion behind it.
Exactly. That presence, just being there with them, that's what makes them feel heard. It makes them feel important. And that's way more powerful than any witty thing you were about to say.
Precisely. If you want depth, if you want real trust, you have to win that internal mental game first.
So we've got the internal game, down, carrying, questioning. Now let's talk about the external stuff, the actual mechanics we use to keep that connection going. Here's where it gets really interesting. The third big tool is all about managing your nonverbal communication. We say so much without, ever using a word. Your tone, your posture.
Micro expressions, even. And the sources really stress that you have to master these signals to show you're actually engaged.
We're not just talking about nodding your head, are we?
No, we're talking about the active use of what are sometimes called back channels, those little cues like a head nod or the yes.
Right.
They're like a constant stream of reassurance that you're sending to the speaker.
And if you stop that stream, the speaker feels like they're just talking into a void. They might start to speed up or worry they're boring you.
Or just stop talking altogether. But the source material adds a really critical cultural warning here. You have to adjust these cues accordingly.
Meaning what one person sees as engagement, another might see as an interruption.
Exactly. Can I give you an example?
Please.
Okay, so in some contests, say a fast-paced American business chat, you're expected to give constant verbal feedback. The got it, the right, the mm-mm. Without it, the speaker might think you're lost.
Okay.
But in other cultures, or even just in a more formal setting, those same interruptions could be seen as disrespectful, like you're impatient and you just want them to hurry up and finish.
So the key is to mirror the other person. You have to calibrate your signals to match their energy.
That's the skill. It's not just about performing the cue, it's about performing it at the right frequency for that specific person.
That leads pretty naturally into the next mechanical skill, which is mastering segues and transitions. A good segue is, what, a graceful pivot.
A graceful pivot, that's a perfect way to put it. The goal is to make the discussion feel like a flowing river, not a series of, jarring stops and starts.
So let's define the don't, the abrupt shift. You're talking about their stressful job, and then suddenly you go, so what's your favorite color?
Right. It's a topic killer. It completely violates the shared emotional space you just created. A smooth transition builds a bridge.
The source material gives a couple of good models for this. I remember one was the context-inclusive bridge. So instead of, what do you do for fun? You'd say something like, given how demanding that job sounds, what do you like to do when you finally get some free time?
You're linking the topics. Another good one is the summary link. You quickly summarize what you just heard and then link it to a related topic. For example, wow, that sounds like a really demanding career. Speaking of travel, are there any other places you're hoping to go soon?
You validate what they said before you move on. I like that.
And then there's the contrast switch. This one's great for moving from a heavy topic to a lighter one. You could say, okay, that sounds intense. Let's switch gears completely. What's the silliest movie you've seen lately?
Using these tools helps you avoid the ultimate momentum killer, the awkward silence.
Ugh, yes. That horrible moment where you both just stop and wait for the other person to say something.
And the best way to prevent that is to get better at asking follow-up questions.
That's the secret weapon. A good follow-up does two things at once. It lets you go deeper into a topic, which builds connection, but it also, crucially, buys you a little bit of time.
It keeps the engine running while you check the map.
That's it. It gives you a mental breath to figure out your next big question without the whole conversation just grinding to a halt.
So we've covered the universal rules. Now we need to shift to the context where all of this gets way more intense. Having a conversation in a foreign language.
Right.
For anyone navigating English as a non-native speaker, the rules really change. And the source material has one very blunt primary directive here.
And it is that understanding is so much more important than speaking well.
Vastly more important.
This is a huge realization for learners. The second you can't understand the native speaker, the entire conversation just breaks. It falls apart.
It becomes disjointed.
Yeah, and the native speaker is forced to do things they really don't want to do, repeating themselves, slowing down, spelling things out.
And let's be honest, unless you're talking to a teacher, the average native speaker, your colleague, a new friend, they just don't have the patience or the training for that.
Their priority is the topic, the flow. They're not there to give you a language lesson.
So the main focus for you, the learner, has to be on your ability to understand their fast, natural speech, even if it means your own grammar isn't perfect.
If you can't understand them, the conversation is over. It's that simple.
And when you inevitably don't understand something, how you handle it is critical. The sources say, first and foremost, do not command the other person.
Oh, this is so important. You should never, ever use imperatives like repeat, please.
Or say that again slower.
Yes. It's so abrupt. It puts a sudden demand on the other person that can feel, a bit aggressive.
So what's the correct way to do it?
It's a two-step process. First, you apologize. You say, I'm sorry, or my apologies. You take responsibility for the communication gap.
That immediately diffuses any potential frustration.
Exactly. And then you ask politely, using a full phrase. Something like, I'm sorry, could you say that one more time? Or even better, my apologies, my brain didn't quite catch that last word. Could you repeat it?
That's so much smoother. Another key point was about attitude. The advice is to poke fun at your own mistakes, but never denigrate your English.
Okay, let's break that down. Poking fun is just lighthearted joking. If you mix up a word, you just give a little smile or a laugh. It signals you know you made a mistake, but it's not a big deal.
It makes the other person comfortable.
Right. But denigrating your English, saying things like, ugh, my English sucks, or getting visibly frustrated, That puts a huge emotional burden on the other person.
It forces them to become your cheerleader. No, no, your English is great.
And that completely kills the natural vibe you're trying to build. Just laugh it off and move on. The other person probably doesn't care about the mistake nearly as much as you do.
This all leads to what is maybe the most difficult piece of advice for language learners. You have to prioritize fluency over accuracy.
This is a tough one for people to accept, but the sources are crystal clear. If you're too focused on perfect grammar, you will hesitate. And that hesitation ruins the conversational rhythm.
That little pause while you mentally check a verb tense.
It's an interruption. The native speaker doesn't care about your verb tense. They care about the meaning and the flow.
They prefer speech that feels more natural and normal, even if it has a few mistakes, as long as they can understand you.
If you speak too slowly because you're triple-checking every word, you just make the conversation slow and uncomfortable.
This raises an important question about how our own perfectionism gets in the way of communication. If the goal is connection, then sacrificing that smooth, comfortable flow for the sake of perfect grammar is, well, it's self-defeating.
You've traded connection for correctness, and the research shows that confidence, which comes from focusing on fluent delivery, is way more engaging than grammatically perfect hesitation. You just have to embrace the errors and focus on the rhythm.
So to wrap this deep dive up, it's really a holistic approach. We started with the foundation, master active listening and asking good questions to build that initial connection.
Then we move to the mechanics, using body language and smooth segues to maintain a natural flow.
And finally, for the language learner, it's about shifting your priorities. Focus on understanding, be polite when you don't, and commit to fluency, even if it means sacrificing perfect accuracy.
It's a toolkit, really, a shortcut to better social interactions. When you shift your focus from your own performance to the other person's comfort, you can move through these conversations with so much more confidence and ease.
The sources make such a strong case that pausing for perfect accuracy just ruins the rhythm of the conversation. So I want to leave you with a final thought on that. Think about other areas in your life, totally outside of language. Where else might you be sacrificing essential flow or a real connection for the sake of achieving some tiny, maybe unnecessary level of perfection, whether that's in a creative project or at work or even in a relationship? What is the true, hidden cost of always striving for perfect accuracy? Something to think about until our next deep dive.